The time I got stuck in an elevator with my ex. You ever have one of those moments where the universe just decides to mess with you? Like, not in a haha, funny coincidence way, but in a let's drop you straight into the ninth circle of hell for our own entertainment kind of way. That's exactly what happened to me last week when I got stuck in an elevator with my ex. Not just any ex. The ex. The one I had the most toxic, exhausting, emotionally draining relationship with. The one who could turn a casual conversation into a full-blown argument in under 5 minutes. The one I swore I would never see again, let alone be trapped in a tiny metal box with. Yet there we were. It was a regular evening at the mall. I had just finished running some errands, arms full of shopping bags, and I was already in a bad mood because I had forgotten half the things I came for. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the parking level, and just as the doors were about to close, bam, someone sticks their hand in. And of course, it had to be her. She walked in, saw me, and immediately that familiar tension filled the space. You know that feeling when your stomach just drops and your brain starts running a million miles an hour trying to figure out an escape plan? Yeah, that. But before I could even process what was happening, the doors shut and the elevator started moving. Then it stopped. Dead stop. No warning, no flickering lights, just a sudden, absolute stillness. Silence. We both stared at each other, waiting for the other to react. Well, she said finally, arms crossed, this is just fantastic. I took a slow breath, willing my body not to react. I was not about to let her see me sweat. I reached for the emergency button and pressed it. A crackly voice answered almost immediately. Mall security, what's the issue? We're stuck in the elevator, I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. Can you send someone? Yeah, we're aware of the issue. A technician on the way, shouldn't be too long. I sighed and leaned against the wall, rubbing my temple. This was already bad enough, but now I was stuck here with her, in a situation that could last anywhere from a few minutes to an hour. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, exhaling sharply. Of course this happens, just my luck. I scoffed. Your luck? Yeah, sure, because this is exactly what I wanted. She shot me a look, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Oh, don't start. I rolled my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The air inside the elevator felt thicker by the second. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I could feel her eyes on me, just like I could feel the words bubbling under the surface, the ones she wanted to say but was holding back. And then she caved. So, how have you been? I let out a dry laugh. You really want to do this right now? She huffed, running a hand through her hair. I don't know, okay? It's awkward as hell. What else are we supposed to do? Just stand here and pretend we don't know each other. That was the plan. Her jaw clenched. Right, because ignoring things is what you do best. And there it was, the first spark ready to ignite the fire. I closed my eyes for a second, already regretting even responding. I'm not doing this, not here. She tilted her head, that familiar condescending smirk tugging at her lips. Why not? You never wanted to talk when we were together, either. I felt my hands ball into fists at my sides. Are you seriously trying to start a fight right now? In an elevator? We don't even know how long we'll be in here. She shrugged. Might as well kill time. Unbelievable. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my cool. We broke up for a reason. Multiple reasons, actually. I don't see the point in rehashing everything. She scoffed. Oh, sure, just forget about it, right? Just move on like nothing happened. I clenched my jaw. I did move on. Her eyes darkened. Yeah, you really seem like you've moved on. That hit a nerve, and she knew it. She always knew exactly where to poke to get a reaction out of me. I ran a hand through my hair, biting back the million things I wanted to say. But she wasn't done. You know what the worst part is, she continued. I actually thought we were good together. I thought we had something real. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh yeah, you thought constantly fighting, walking on eggshells, and gaslighting each other was real. Her face twisted in anger. Gaslighting? Oh, that's rich coming from you. And just like that, we were back in it. Tension that had been simmering beneath the surface exploded into full-blown confrontation. No escape, no distractions. Just me, her, and every unresolved issue we had ever buried. Trapped in this goddamn elevator. She laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. It was sharp, bitter, the kind of laugh someone lets out when they're so full of anger they don't know what else to do with it. Gaslighting, huh? She repeated, shaking her head. You want to talk about that? Let's talk about how you used to make me feel crazy for getting upset over things you actually did. I gritted my teeth. Like what? She shot me a look full of disbelief. Are you kidding me? You lied to me constantly. Every time I caught you in some shady sh*T, you had an excuse. And when I finally got fed up, you made me feel like I was the problem. I clenched my fists. Oh, come on, like you were innocent in all of this. Her eyes narrowed. Oh, I know I wasn't perfect, but at least I didn't pretend like everything was fine when it was. You'd go distant for weeks, act like I was just some background character in your life, and when I called you out on it, you'd tell me I was overthinking. I let out a bitter chuckle. Yeah, and what about you? You were controlling as hell. I couldn't even hang out with my own friends without getting the third degree. Her face twisted in frustration. Because your friends hated me, and you let them talk sh*t about me constantly. You just sat there and let it happen. Maybe if you weren't so. I stopped myself, biting my tongue before the word came out. Her eyes flashed. Say it, go ahead. I exhaled sharply, turning away from her, staring at the elevator doors like I could will them open with my mind. She stepped closer, arms still crossed, voice lower now but no less sharp. You think I don't know what you were about to say? I was crazy, right? I was too much. Newsflash, I wasn't born that way. You made me feel that way. I closed my eyes, jaw tight. She wasn't entirely wrong, and that was the worst part. I had spent so much time convincing myself that she was the problem, that I hadn't fully acknowledged how much damage I had done, too. But I wasn't about to admit that. Not now, not here. Instead, I just scoffed. Look, it's over. We don't need to rehash this sh*t. She let out another humorless laugh. Right, because that's what you always do. Shut down, pretend nothing happened, and then I get to be the crazy ex who just won't let it go. I ran a hand down my face, suddenly exhausted. Jesus, do you want an apology? Will that make you feel better? She shook her head, laughing again, but this time it sounded almost sad. An apology? Wow, now you want to give me one, after all this time. She turned away, leaning against the opposite wall, arms still tightly crossed over her chest. I stared at her for a long moment, the weight of everything we never said pressing down on me like a vice. Then quietly I said, I really did love you, you know. She flinched just slightly, but I saw it. For the first time since we stepped into this elevator, the fight drained out of her. She exhaled, eyes fixed on the floor. Yeah, she murmured, I loved you too. Silence. Not the tense, angry kind. Something else. Something heavier. And for the first time, I didn't know what to say. Neither did she. And maybe that was the real tragedy of it all. We had spent so much time hurting each other that, even in a moment of truth, neither of us knew where to go from there. We were just stuck. In every possible way. I leaned against the cold elevator wall, staring at the floor, feeling the weight of everything that had just been said settle over me like a thick fog. It was easy, too easy, to tell myself for months that she had been the problem, that she was the one who made things difficult, that she was the one who turned every small issue into a full-blown war. But sitting here, trapped in this metal box with nothing but silence and the ghosts of every argument we ever had, I couldn't escape one simple truth. I had hurt her too. Maybe I hadn't meant to. Maybe I had convinced myself that my actions were justified, that my words weren't as sharp as she made them out to be. But they were. I could still hear the things I'd said to her in the heat of past fights, words I thought had been lost to time. The way I dismissed her, belittled her feelings because they didn't make sense to me. The way I had pulled away instead of talking things through, making her feel like she was too much just because I couldn't handle the weight of her emotions. She had never been perfect. She could be demanding, controlling, exhausting, but I had my own ways of being cruel, ways I never fully admitted to myself until now. I exhaled slowly, rubbing my temples. What were we even fighting for back then? I thought back to the nights where we had screamed at each other until our throats were raw. The mornings spent in icy silence, neither of us willing to be the first to break. The pointless, stupid arguments over things that didn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. Why did we do that to ourselves? To each other. She shifted beside me, and I glanced up, catching the way she wiped her thumb under her eye, quick, subtle, like she didn't want me to see. I looked away, swallowing hard. There was no fixing this. There was no going back, and I wasn't even sure I wanted to. But I did want her to know that she wasn't alone in carrying the weight of our past. That it wasn't all on her shoulders. That for all the ways she had broken me, I had broken her too. I turned my head slightly, my voice quiet. I don't think either of us were good to each other. She let out a breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, no sh*t. I nodded, running a hand through my hair. I guess I don't know. I never really let myself think about it from your side. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then finally she sighed. Same. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness. But maybe it was the closest we were ever going to get. And maybe that was enough. She let out a slow, tired sigh, leaning her head back against the elevator wall. I could see it in her face, the same exhaustion I felt. Not just from tonight, not just from this stupid situation, but from everything that had ever happened between us. I wish we could have just talked like this back then, she murmured, staring up at the ceiling. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah. There wasn't much else to say. We had spent so much time turning every little thing into a battlefield, treating each other like the enemy instead of just two people who cared too much but didn't know how to show it the right way. I don't even remember half the things we fought about, she admitted, shaking her head. Like, I know they were important at the time, but looking back, she sighed again, it all just feels so F***seeking pointless. I let out a small laugh, though it held no humor. Yeah, we wasted so much time being pissed off over dumb **T. Exactly, she said, turning to look at me. I mean, yeah, there were real problems, but God, we made everything so much worse than it had to be. I met her gaze, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel that knee-jerk need to be defensive, to prove a point. Because what was the point? What did it matter anymore? She wasn't wrong, and neither was I. We had both been right about some things and so wrong about others. But instead of trying to work through it, we had torn each other down piece by piece until there was nothing left to save. I hurt you, I admitted. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but they needed to be said. A lot. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Yeah, you did. I braced myself for the usual sting of resentment, the urge to argue, to justify. But it didn't come. And I hurt you, she added, her voice softer. A lot. I gave a small nod. Yeah. Silence stretched between us, but for once it didn't feel heavy. It felt like relief. Like we had spent so long carrying this weight. This need to be right, to win, and now, finally, we could just set it down. I wish we could have figured this out sooner, she said eventually. Me too, I admitted. Would have saved us a lot of heartbreak. Yeah. For the first time since we had gotten stuck in this damn elevator, she smiled. Just a little. Just enough for me to remember why I had loved her in the first place. Maybe, in some small way, I still did. Not in a way that meant we could go back. Not in a way that meant we were meant to be. But in a way that meant, despite everything, I was still grateful to have known her. To have loved her. Even if we hadn't done it right. Even if we never would again. Just as I opened my mouth to say something, anything, the elevator jolted. The lights flickered. And then, with a loud ding, the doors finally slid open. As we stepped out of the elevator, the cool air of the mall hit me like a reset button. It was strange. Just a few minutes ago, we had been trapped in a box with years of unresolved emotions pressing down on us. Now, we were just two people again, walking in separate directions, carrying nothing but the weight we had finally put down. I glanced at her one last time. She was looking straight ahead, but something in her posture told me she felt it too, that odd, quiet something in our chests. Not regret, not longing, just understanding. Maybe in another life, we would have figured it out sooner. Maybe we would have learned how to talk before we learned how to hurt each other. Maybe we would have fought for the right reasons instead of just fighting to win. But this wasn't another life. This was now. And now we both knew the truth. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. They're just meant to be understood. I took a deep breath and let it out. There was no going back, no second chance, no dramatic reconciliation. And that was okay. Because for the first time in a long time, we had finally said what needed to be said. And no matter where life took us from here, at least we wouldn't be carrying that weight anymore. I looked at her again, just once. She met my gaze. We both smiled, small, tired, real. Then we turned and walked away. Because some chapters aren't meant to be rewritten. They're just meant to end.